Dhe mysafiri ynë I parë njeriu me cilin do ta zhvillojmë intervistën e parë në emision sonte është Ish-zëdhënësi I NATO-s, është një prej njerëzve që me paraqitjet e tij ka qenë jo vetëm burim informimi, ka qenë edhe burim shprese për kosovarët. Fjala është për Jamie Shea, të cilin besoj tani nëpërmjet një video lidhje do të duhej ta kishim live nga Brukseli. If so, Mr. Shea, if you can hear me, I'd like to welcome you to our show.
Very many thanks for the invitation. Delighted to be with you today.
And we look back at March 24th as one of the more important dates in Kosovo history. How do you look back at it now, having in mind especially the current situation?
Well, I still look back on it with a certain degree of pride because I felt that compared with Bosnia, where NATO hesitated before intervening, set many red lines that it didn't really keep, and we had, as you know, 100,000 people killed and 2.5 million refugees and displaced people before finally NATO intervened in 1995. When it came to Kosovo, I really felt that NATO handled it a lot better. There was an attempt to negotiate at Rambouillet, but NATO made it clear that if the Serbs backed away from that agreement, which you remember that the Kosovo Albanians accepted, and if they went back, the Serbs went back to a campaign of repression, NATO would act. And on March the 24th, the Allies agreed to do so. Sometimes action is necessary. You have to be prepared to act. And so I felt that this time round, we had a much better chance of intervening preventively and stopping massive violence in Kosovo, even if it was impossible to save the lives of everybody, of course.
And having in mind a recent sad event, I'd say, the passing of Madeleine Albright, I would like you to maybe just give us an idea as to what her particular role was during this whole time in Rambouillet especially, and then as Secretary of State of US during the, let's say, negotiations and then the campaign itself.
Yes, well, like you, I was deeply affected yesterday by the news of Madeleine Albright's death. I knew her very well personally. She was a great inspiration for me, and I worked with her back in 2010 when she was the chairperson of a group of experts. I was also part of that group that prepared NATO's new strategic concept, which is still NATO's mission statement today. But of course, in the Kosovo years, she was a passionate believer in humanitarian intervention. She believed that NATO should not simply stay inside its borders after the end of the Cold War and wait to be attacked, but that NATO should use its military and political assets actively to stop genocide, to stop massive crimes against humanity, human rights violations in Europe. She believed in being very firm with dictators, whether they're called Putin, Milosevic, and she was the Pentagon, which sometimes was for what they thought were little wars, that the Pentagon and NATO more generally should be prepared to use force if necessary. And so she came, as you know, from Czechoslovakia.
Yes.
She was forced to flee to the United States because of the repression of the Nazis. She was deeply scarred by that experience, the experience of appeasement, of not standing up to dictators in the 1930s, which had produced the Second World War. And so I think her childhood really shaped her vision of life. But she was a great believer in liberal democracy, and may her soul rest in peace.
And you mentioned the new NATO mission statement, but let's get back to 1999. Would you say